Mathematically speaking, in a year, if you make a 1% compounding change every single day, you will go from 1 to over 37 in the course of a year. That is a nearly 4,000% increase. Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping teachers navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Sean Morgan, a full-time educator and personal financial coach and speaker, and I'm here to help every teacher, whether you're a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights or a new educator navigating your first paycheck, to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life. I'm excited for this episode as we are rounding out the end of the new year. I wanted to talk to you guys today about something you can do for this coming year to really have a powerful 2026 or any year of your life. I'm going to start by telling you a story. The story is of a pilot. Now, this pilot wanted to circumnavigate the globe, but not just in any way. He wanted to go exactly around the equator. So he gets on his proverbial airstrip and starts going on an exact course across the equator, takes off going straight across the equator, and as he gets lined up on the equator, he accidentally bumps a single button that changes his course in autopilot by just 1 degree. Not realizing this error, he lays back and waits the roughly 2 days it will take to fly around the entire Earth to make it from the first spot on the equator all the way back to that same spot again. Now, as that time comes to a close, he gets up eager to land the plane to celebrate his accomplishment of flying perfectly around the equator, and then he realizes his horrible mistake. He is nearly 600 miles away from his intended destination. How did that happen? 1 degree doesn't seem like very much. In fact, if I asked anybody here to draw 1 degree, a single degree angle, the ability to do that is almost outside of human power. We can try, but we'll probably get more like 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees when we try and draw a single degree, because it is such an infinitesimal amount of change, such a small difference, but it can make all the difference. So, mathematically speaking, in a year, if you make a 1% compounding change every single day, you will go from 1 to over 37 in the course of a year. That is a nearly 4,000% increase. Now, I don't expect anybody to be able to generate those kinds of return on their investment. If you do, and they're safe, let me know. But the personal investment that you can make by growing 1% every single day is enormous. Nearly 4,000% growth in a year. Now, 1% a day sounds kind of doable, doesn't it? Because it's just 1%. It's not that much. It's not that big of a lift. This works very, very well in a lot of areas of our lives. Let's say you're trying to get better in lifting weights. You slowly add just a little bit more every day. Sure, there's plateaus in there a little bit, and sometimes you try and push harder, but the whole point is to get about a 1% increase every day. You don't expect to go from lifting 20 pounds to 200 pounds tomorrow. You don't expect to grow at a rate of 10 pounds a day, because that's not sustainable. But just a little bit. Like, I'm just going to maybe do 1 more rep. I'm just going to do a little bit more weight, and you add just a bit more every single day. That allows your strength to grow. Same thing with running. You don't go from not running to running a marathon. You have to build up to it. We can do this with anything with our bodies, but we can also do this with learning. You don't go from knowing nothing to knowing everything about a subject. It takes time. Building 1% every single day allows you to go from where you are now to extreme growth over the course of a year if you're willing to layer on just 1%. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, I want to relate this now to our money. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I was kind of stuck in this space, and I want to try and help you guys get unstuck faster than I did. I would look at my budget and I would say, I already have it dialed in. I have these things that are extraneous, but I want them. I like them. I don't feel like we can cut these or anything like that. And I have, all my food is being covered in this way, and that seems enough. And I've got, my transportation in this way, and that seems enough. And I was rationalizing. I was making excuses for why I couldn't do better on my budget. I was fully convinced that I had everything dialed in. Now, to give you a glimpse into my life, I am pretty darn dialed in. It's winter right now, and it is 65 degrees in my house, and I do not change the thermostat up any from that unless there's some important reason to do so. I keep my house very cool in the winter. And in the summer, I keep my house very hot, like 78 degrees, because I would much rather have a fan on, which uses way less power, or much rather just put a coat on when I'm cold than pay for that. So I'm dialing those kinds of things in. I have the cheapest working cell phone plan I can find at $25 a month. That is not the cheapest out there, but the cheapest out there. Not going to bash any names out there, but they have a very famous representative. Just doesn't work for me. Okay, so I found the cheapest one that works for me, and that's what I have. I have, the cheapest internet I can find. I always am battling my internet providers back and forth. I've got, beat up, chunky looking cars that run just fine, but they just don't look very good because they were inexpensive. I've done a lot of things to keep my expenses low, but that doesn't mean that I was perfect. And I started rationalizing that I didn't want to make any forward strides. Now, I'm going to talk more about this in a later episode, but one of the biggest forward strides I made just recently was changing to a much cheaper way of eating. We're going to talk a lot about that in that later episode, but I was able to drastically cut my food spending. I've got a family of four, and I was spending around $800, $900 a month, which, if you look at averages, I was actually averaging about how much people spend per month. But I didn't realize that I don't want to be average because the average American is doing much worse than I want to do. One that finally got through my head, I started making changes. And I thought I'll just make some small adjustments and it will make some small differences in my life. But the interesting thing is that when I made those small adjustments, it started compounding really, really fast. And my food bill has dropped in half because of these small changes that I've made. So this 1% rule might even have a compounding effect, a snowball effect that goes much, much quicker than you would think. If you just say, what am I going to improve on by 1%? This doesn't just apply to food. You can also apply this once again to the temperature of your home. Let's say you're not crazy like me and you don't want to have your home at 65 degrees, but let's say you have it at 72. Well, would you be just as comfortable at 71 as at 72? Could you adjust it down 1 degree and then wait and say, am I okay? Maybe you had to put on a coat for, a small period of time as, you were adjusting. I don't know. Then could you drop it another degree after you've adjusted to that and get used to that? Wear a larger coat, put on a hat. There's nothing wrong with wearing a cap inside. In fact, I'm going to let you guys in on a little window into my life. Because it's so cold in my house during the winter, I wear a nightcap. I wanted to say wear because I don't want you guys to think I'm taking a nightcap. Okay, that's different. I wear a nightcap. This is like straight up 1800s. They had the nightcap. I'm picturing Scrooge getting out of bed with the ghost with the little cap with the little tassel on top. I don't have the tassel on top. I'm just wearing like a light beanie. But the ability for me to sleep in a colder house is much, much higher because I wear a nightcap. Now, some people just like sleeping cold. I'm not that person. If you like sleeping cold, this doesn't apply to you. But the point is, instead of saying, I'm cold, I need to raise my thermostat, I said, I'm cold, what can I do to be warm? And I've done something unconventional. People don't wear nightcaps anymore, but I do because it keeps me warm. So there's a window into what I'm doing. But the point is that I am making a small change and I'm asking, how can I live with this small change instead of assuming that I can't? And this can apply in so many areas. Driving. Can I drive 1% less? So I use less gasoline. Can I, bunch together my errands so that I'm out and about and I get them all done instead of saying I'm just going to drive whenever I feel like it to go, across town or whatever. Driving 1% less can be huge. Or having a vehicle that uses 1% less gasoline over the course of an entire year will have significant savings on how much gasoline that you use when you're driving. So just thinking through this on each area of your life, what can I do 1% less? Could I take 1% less coverage on my insurance? Proverbially, it might have to be more than 1%. So that way, I can save a bit more now and then, drive well and things like that. So you don't have to pay extra if you get in a wreck, of course. But just asking about everything. Do I need that much coverage? Could I take a little bit less? Would that be a better impact on my life? Do I need that much medical coverage? Could I take a little bit less and get an HSA, which is, of course, a great thing? Could I increase my contribution to my HSA, my 403b, my IRA, those things by 1%? Try increasing that by 1% this month, and then 1% the next month, and then the next, and the next. 1% is such a teeny, itty bitty little amount. You will not notice. You'll be able to just take it in stride. So, the point I'm making here is we all have that area that we've rationalized, that area that we've thought there's no way I can make that change. And we have just avoided it. But I want to invite you to make 1% difference every day in your life this year. What is 1% change you can make that's going to improve your life by that 1% daily? So that way you are 4,000% better by the end of next year. That is the challenge. So I want to wrap this up with just this final invitation. Choose one thing. We're going to make this as easy as possible. You're going to choose one thing per month to make 1% difference on. So you're only going to make a 1% difference for each of these things for 12 months. So it's like you can try and shoot for 1% per day per month, but I'm just starting small. We're going to do 1% difference per month for 12 things in your life because I believe if you focus on just making that small adjustment, you will find that it snowballs and it'll make a much larger shift in your budget, in your way of thinking, in your ability to grow financially if you make that 1% adjustment. So just start with, okay, next month, January 1st, what is that 1% difference I'm going to make? Is it going to be in my food spending? Is it going to be in my utilities? Is it going to be in my car? Is it going to be in any of these variable expenses you had? Obviously, it's hard to make a 1% difference in your mortgage payment. However, if you're going to go the opposite direction, say I'm going to pay 1% extra on my mortgage to see how that works and how that can, over time, reduce the amount I'm going to pay in interest. That could be a powerful thing too. On your debt, can you pay 1% more? I hadn't even thought about that until just now. So there are so many areas of opportunity to change by 1%, to make a 1% difference in your life every single day. And just start with one thing per month and set a reminder and do it now. Pause this episode. Say, okay, every single, 25th of the month, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to make my goal for 1% improvement for the next month. And then I'm going to set reminders. I'm going to put up sticky notes. I'm going to whatever it is that works for you. Remind myself to stick with this 1%. And we can talk more about ways that we can stick with goals, but that I'm working on right now myself another time. Because if we're going to make these frugal changes in our life, we have to be intentional. Frugality must be intentional. It is nearly impossible to be frugal unintentionally. Once you've gotten into it, you can keep doing it unintentionally, but you must get there first intentionally, with absolute intention on what you're hoping to achieve and absolute intention on what you're going to do. And making these 1% adjustments are going to allow us to do that. So make sure that you have it written down. Don't just say, this was a nice idea, Sean. Make it happen. Go out there and make 1% difference in your life every day and be 4,000% better by the end of this year. I think that every one of us can do this. We can make 4,000% differences in our lives, not in our wallets necessarily. It won't come out mathematically at 4,000%, but we will feel 4,000% better if we push for 1% improvement every single day. Okay, I know that you guys have a lot on your plate. That's why I'm not pushing you to make huge gains and huge changes, just that 1% change, because you as a teacher are already rich. Your wallet just needs to catch up. If you would like help on your personal financial situation, go to teachermoneyshow.com/coaching and you'll be able to find different ways that I can help you there. If you would like to participate in spreading this message of financial empowerment to teachers, I would encourage you to talk to your administrator or to your district level about going to seankmorgan.com to find more information there. And regardless of which one of those you need, please like and subscribe so that way we can spread the reach of this more. Leave a 5-star rating and review. That's going to help more teachers find this. And then turn around and tell a teacher friend. I really appreciate it.
The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional.